Okay, so today we are going to look at a new order which requires an etched portrait, and I'm going to show you the process of how we typically prepare portraits. So first thing you'll notice if you open up your email, and I'm going to go back because just to show you, you'll receive an email from one of the sandblasters who completed the order. They'll send you the name and the number associated with the order, and they'll tell you where the files are located that for the sandblasting portion. So if you go into the 2021, you'll either see the files populate individually here, or you'll see them already put into a folder for you. When I open up the folder, you'll see these are the 4 files that you will be receiving. The one that is of concern to us right now is the one that says EPS, encapsulated post. Let's see, actually, it's a little slow. Yeah, encapsulated postscript. And we are going to open this in Photoshop. This will tell you the dimensions. So now that we have this opened in Photoshop, you can see the letters have been filled white. This happens inconsistently, where based on preference of the sandblaster, they will either take liberties of filling the lettering themselves, or in some instances, you'll have lettering which you'll have to fill white yourself. So it will only have a stroke outline, and then you will fill in each letter manually. But in this instance, it's done for us. So what we'll do first is we'll go to Select. We'll go to Color Range. We'll click on Medium Tones. We'll click OK. And what this does is this just highlights every area that's gray. We will switch to our black color for our brush. Click on the Layers tab. Make sure we're unlocked. And we'll make our brush really big. We will make it hard. To make the brush harder or softer, the hardness, you can hit Shift and then the bracket keys right next to the P on your keyboard, left and right accordingly. So after we have this, then we need to make sure the opacity is 100% and the flow is 100%, and we will get a pure black. Then we just go and we start filling in the stone. Once the stone is filled, we hit M, which is our marquee tool, or we can click the marquee tool. And we just click on the screen to take out the moving ants, which show our highlighted area. The next step we need to do is to find the portrait, which we're going to put on the sandblasting element. So what we'll do, we'll go back to New Builder, and the first page that you should see is this page. Now from here we're going to click Etching Artwork Department, and this will give us all the orders that we have completed that we need to continue working on, or revisions. We will just go ahead and make a Control F search for given name. Once it shows up, we will double click on the cyan. We will then double click on the cyan again. We will click over onto Files, and these are the assets which we will need to download and put into our folder. So what I typically do is I create a subfolder entitled Resources. If we click on the resource folder, you'll see that I've already downloaded and pulled these assets in. To download the assets, you click on them, you click download, they will begin their download, and then you just drag them over into the said folder that you've created. So here you see I just created a duplicate, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That was just an example to show you. So now that we have our assets in here, we're going to go ahead and look at them just to get a good reference point of what we're doing. Most of the time you'll receive a gold drawing or some sort of rendering which shows the location that the asset is going to be placed. In this instance, it looks like the customer wants it on the left-hand side. So we'll go ahead and we'll pull this asset in and we'll enlarge it. And now it becomes really an aesthetic decision. The customer hasn't requested whether the back be clipped out or not. And whereas I feel like the background gives context for the situation, I think what I'm going to do is clip just the top portion and leave some of the water so that contextually we understand that he's fishing. So we'll go ahead and choose the lasso tool. We choose the polygonal lasso tool. To switch between tools, for the lasso tools, you click Shift and L, and that will rotate which tool you use. These shortcut keys are imperative for fulfilling orders quickly. So then what we'll do, and forgive me because my computer is lagging, we'll just go ahead and we'll try to get as close as we can to the figure as we begin clipping him. Our goal here is to create a realistic fade on the edge of the person to make it seem that he is in a different place, that he's not in the scene anymore. So what we'll do here is we will rasterize this. We will pull this up. We will create a mask. And I just go ahead and invert that section. So just to show you again, when you create a mask, it masked off the selection that I made. And I want actually the opposite of that. So what I do is I click on the mask itself and I hit Control I, which reverses the masking selection. So when I do that, it actually flips it. Using masks is important to me because the customers will typically request changes. If you create permanent changes to an artwork, you can't ever go back. And so to save myself some time, I create this masking area, which never does permanent damage. You see if I take off the mask, it shows the full image again. A mask serves as like a temporary clipping layer. And so that when a customer comes back and requests a change, or if I make a mistake while I'm clipping it, I can always go back and I can always quickly make that change. And it saves a lot of time for me. So we will continue clipping. Get up here to the top of his head. And I usually do it in sections. So what we'll do now is, since we've reversed the mask and it's in the place that we want to, all you have to do really now is just hit delete. It's important that your white layer is on top when you do this, because if, for instance, your black layer is on top and you hit delete, it actually puts the scene back in. So just make sure you have the white layer on top when you use this tool. And the more we hit delete, the more it refines this layer. It continues to erase smaller and smaller amounts down as we click delete. As you can see, I'm going to go overboard. And so this is really helpful if we have hard edges and we need to just hit delete again and soften an edge. We can do that. So I think I'll do one more. I think that looks all right. Decently smooth edge. So we'll just continue on. Okay, we're getting close. That we'll go ahead and just cut it off here for now. Okay. So if we zoom out, we look at it, we say, okay, he's in the boat. Some water around him. Now I'll go ahead and resize him. Typically you don't want the image running off of the stone, so I try to keep a little space in between the edge of the stone and the portrait. Now what we want to do is, oh man, there's so many ways to do this. So we can hit Control Alt Shift E, and that will create a compressed layer. Computer's a little frozen. So we hit Control Alt Shift E. That's not working. So actually in this instance what we'll do is I'll just copy this down here just so I have it as a backup. I'll turn the mask off. Now what I'll do is I'll zoom in a little bit, and I want to soften all these edges. I don't want really hard edges because it just looks like clip art. It doesn't look real. So I'll take my feathering up to 20 on my polyagonal lasso, and I'll start to just kind of work around this image, kind of running around the edge of the image, just so I know that I've softened all the points. And I'll go ahead and just hit delete again, and that will soften those edges. Now that I have all the edges soft, I want to kind of smooth out these hard edges still. So maybe in this instance, I'll take the feathering down to 10 again. I'll feather this out. Okay. And then I want to get my brush tool, make that really small, drop the hardness down on it so that it's smooth. drop the flow. The flow means when you run over an area, there's a lag in how quickly it erases that area. So you get a nicer and smoother transition. Okay, so in this instance, now we're gonna flip this to black. So we'll have black on top for the brush tool, and that will erase. And we'll just go ahead and soften our tool and just start painting that in. And as you can see, it's smoothing out those hard edges, making it look a little more realistic. Okay. We'll just go ahead and zoom out. We'll take a look at it. Looks all right. We'll make it a little bit smaller just so it's not overlaying the text, the lettering. And what we typically do is that we select a shape. We select the ellipse and we make the fill color white. We create the ellipse, say about yay big, and we move it on top of the figure. Then we hit filter, blur, Gaussian blur. We convert to a smart object, and in my experience, a really smooth transition makes for like a more natural experience. So we try to do something that the gradation kind of runs into black, a very smooth transition. So I do it by feel and look. This looks good to me. So we'll hit OK. Hit OK. And we will drag that ellipse below the primary layer. So now I'll just go ahead and reposition this. I hit Control T to change the position of it. So we'll look at it here again. You can also just use your left and right and top and bottom to move around the shape. So we'll say I think that looks good. I'll pull him over a little bit just to get him in the highlight. Then we'll zoom out again. We'll kind of look at that. And that looks pretty good. I'll do one more thing. I do want the transition down by his knees to be a little more round. So I'll just go ahead and kind of knock that down. Great. Okay, once we're in a place where we think we're good, and I think that looks pretty good for now, we'll see what the customer says. We'll go ahead and save that out. I use the shortcut key Control-Shift-S, which is a save as. I have a system for out of consistency that I do underscores between instead of spaces. So you have the family name, the numbering, underscore art, underscore art, underscore JH, which are my initials, underscore revision, REV revision 0. This is the very first revision, so we call it revision 0. Go ahead and save that out. It will save into the folder. Go ahead and hit that Control-Shift-S again. Save out a JPEG and save it out as quality of 8. This makes a file which isn't extremely large. We are then going to create the OFA, and you'll receive these folders when you begin from your supervisor. I received them, and then what I did was I just created a shortcut to that folder, which is OFA files, and all the files which I received, I created the folder OFA files on my desktop. So this is just a shortcut from my desktop that I can easily access. So I'll go ahead and open that OFA. Okay. After I open the OFA, I go back into my folder for the family. I look at the 4 assets which the Sandblaster had sent me, and I click on the TPG order form. And when Sandblasting sends over an order, they send over this TPG order, and it basically has all the information that you need to plug into your OFA form. So we'll go ahead and just kind of copy this information. The family name is actually not Black Ultimate, which you'll see right here. I believe that was a mistake, which I will send an email to the sandblasting department about. The family name is BORROR. Borer. The order number is in the top right-hand corner here. 271213, and the customer is, I imagine, not Black Ultimate. So what you can do to double check this TPG form from the Sandblasters, if you need to, this is a good example. We will go back to New Builder, and we will go to the original page that lists off the customer names and numbers. We'll click back on the cyan for borrower. We will click on the cyan again, and then we'll go over here to print order. And this is the original order form that was received from customer service from the client. So if we look at sold to here, this is actually our customer, so Crosser. So we'll just go ahead and type that information in. Okay. And this form has, in fact, most of the same information with the exception of the sandblasting styles. That will only be located on the TPG form. So instead of looking through all this, it shows the stone size and the polish number. It shows what the shape of the stone is, and I could plug that in. I'm just going to go back to the TPG form because it's a little clearer where that information is. So we look at shape. You have shape here. It's a die. The top is a flat, and it's right slanted. Now I'll see if that's an option here. It doesn't look like it is. So I will put right slanted in the notes section. Then I plug in the size, which is 2.2. The width, which is 0.6. And the height, which is 2. The lettering, you have the skin cut with medium white highlight. You also have carvings, which are skin cut. In the artist notes on my section, I will say portrait etch top left. I also note what I did. Background clipped. We'll say portion of background clipped, halo added, and then we'll say that's good. The one other thing I want to note, and I'll go back to the report here, is on this report, it says the size of the etching, which is an 8" by 10". I'll go back to my Photoshop file and I will pull up my shape and I'll run a shape. I'll plug in these numbers. I'll do, let's see, we'll say 8 by 10, 8" by 10", just to get a reference for what they're looking for. And that's a fair range. I think I can't really go larger than this without running into lettering. So I think I'm just going to say, this is, with the halo, it looks like an 8 by 10. So we'll say 8 by 10". The next page of the OFA, we're going to right click. We're going to go into Edit PDF. We're going to right click. We're going to actually add image. We are going to go into that order. We're going to find where that order is located, 2021 border. We're going to click on our JPEG that we saved out. Size that accordingly to fit. Okay. I like to center it, make it look nice for the customer. This page, this is the reason we post it twice is because the customer that we work with will review one, and then they will give the family another one to review and sign. So this is the one the family receives. It's void of our information, and it's a little cleaner for the family to review. It's a little larger as well. So we'll go ahead and then save this out. I hit Control-Shift-S. This page shows up. Typically you'll get the name of the folder and your recents, but if we want to search for it manually, we click Choose Different Folder. We go into our 2021. And I've created shortcuts for the 2021 so I can just easily find it on my screen. Click on the folder, and this is where we want to save it. I just start typing out the family name, and then I typically choose my JPEG to reference. I erase the art that I made, and I erase the JPEG on the end. And then I just put OFA. This is just a little cleaner. So then we go back in our folder, borrower. We are going to slowly double click this so that we can copy the name. We are going to go into our email. Click Control-N for new message to service. We are going to drag that file into the letter. We are going to hit Control-V to paste in the name of that order. And I've created custom signatures, one for revision, one for new orders. You can work with your supervisor and they may give you the language to use for both of these. So we will click in this instance. It's the very first revision, the very first piece of information that we're sending out to the customer. So we'll click New Order, and here's all the language we will double click the bold name and we will just type in the family name. So we'll say right there. And then this is, we'll double check this. So I just double click on the file and make sure all of my information is correct. Stone size, if I've made the proper notes, and positioning of the etch, lettering style and carving style, and that I have both of my images and they look good. So we'll go ahead and send this out. And then your order will get reviewed by the customer. The customer will either approve the work or request a revision. And then you'll get revision notes and you'll make the revisions accordingly.